The Allen Institute hosted a workshop in 2018, which led to an incredibly unique experiment on consciousness, which led to some very important new information, which I'll talk about in a moment. But just to say about the Allen Institute, it is an incredible endeavor which the Allen Institute undertakes, which is to encourage adversarial collaborations in science, a very rare thing that is not done often. But the Allen Institute really tries to push this kind of experimental process, because what it does is it takes people who come from completely opposing schools of thought in science and puts them together in a lab to come up with answers and to basically try their theories against one another. And this is just such an incredible way to develop new knowledge and to get rid of any possibility of confirmation bias when you have just one group in a lab that has one belief that tries to prove that belief. It slows things down so much. And of course, funding and ego get in the way of this, but the Allen Institute is really helping to change that, to force opposing theories into the same room so that we can come to the answers more quickly. So that was done in this experiment. And recently, basically what was done is 256 participants, which is apparently a large number in these kinds of experiments, got together and were shown visual stimuli. And their brains were measured as they were looking at these stimuli. And these experiments were done to try and prove either the integrated information theory, which is that consciousness is internal, that the brain creates consciousness, or the global workspace theory, which suggests that consciousness comes from the outside and that the brain is processing information that comes to it rather than from it. And the truth is, in this experiment, neither theory was proven to be true or false. But what was discovered was that consciousness appears to come from a different part of the brain than what we thought it came from. I believe the general assumption was that consciousness came from the frontal part of the brain where vision is considered to be processed most prominently. But through this experiment, it was learned that actually it seems to come from the back of the brain, and that perception and processing of visual stimuli comes from the back of the brain. And so what this did was give the idea that intelligence is doing and consciousness is being, which there's a lot more to be said about that, a lot more to be learned. Nothing was really proven, but it's a very big step in the process of understanding consciousness. And I think that when you consider the way mediumship works, when you consider that people who practice mediumship or any kind of spiritual connection must first become fully present in the moment, must just simply be, in order to be able to pick up on the information and energy that comes through. And that requires practice through meditation, through healing those internal struggles and structures that block the way for this kind of information to be processed. So learning to be is an incredible part of an incredibly important part of mediumship, and is the consciousness aspect of mediumship, it appears from this experiment. And yet at the same time, intelligence and doing is also required. We need intelligence all the time, no matter what we do, right? But there's often an emphasis placed on don't think, don't think, don't think. But we have to think. It's a matter of how do we use the thinking to expand the consciousness. And I think this is just the universal question. How do we merge the two? How do we merge intelligence and consciousness to bring expansion to the species? And that's what this experiment is working on, and what all consciousness researchers are trying to figure out. How do we expand our knowing and our being in the pursuit of understanding of consciousness? And I think mediumship can really give some important insights into this. And I'll give an example. When I'm giving a reading to somebody, I have to take space. I have to take moments of silence and breathe to allow what comes through to come through. But I also have to be present with the visual information that is presented to me, and I also have to use my brain to interpret that information. So I think I've used this example before, but I was once giving a reading to someone whose father had passed and he wanted to connect with his father. And I saw a coin, and I just shared with him that I saw the coin. And then I allowed my brain to interpret the coin in the way that made the most sense to me, but also that aligned with the conscious experience of seeing the coin as it was coming from an external place. And so merging the two is difficult to do and is part of the challenge of mediumship. But it's also the part of the challenge of being human, expanding our consciousness, being with consciousness, but also doing with intelligence. So these incredible experiments and pursuits of understanding of consciousness are so important to both our material day-to-day and to spiritual development. So I thought I would share that. Please let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts on that or anything you want to share at all. Oh, and also one more thing. Lucy Letby is innocent. Exonerate Lucy Letby.